Hi, and welcome to this video of Dynamics 365 Talk, where I'll be discussing the updates to Dynamics 365 field service inspections. Now, you probably know that Microsoft released their own version of inspections for field service, which is currently in public preview. And I actually wrote an article about that as well. So this video is actually going to be about updates to the inspections functionality in Dynamics 365. But before we get to that, let me just introduce myself. My name is Dion Taylor. I am a Microsoft Business Applications MVP. Feel free to check out my blog at D365goddess.com. Follow me on Twitter at D365goddess or connect with me on LinkedIn by scanning the QR code that you see on your screen. Now, here are some of the things that I'm going to be discussing today, some of the new features. So we're going to be able now to actually copy an inspection, and this could be an inspection that's already published, already active. Then there's going to be branching and conditional logic, so we'll touch on that as well. We now have the ability to actually put an entity lookup in that question as well, in the inspection as a question. Then users are going to be able to enter time in the format that they have set in their personal settings. There's going to be a number field, or I should say a number type of question, where people can only input numbers. And then lastly, we now also have the ability to add inspections in Woodford, and you can actually go ahead and download that template, that project, I should say, and then upload that in your Woodford solution. And to be able to do that, like I said, you want to go to my blog and check out this article because I have the link to that Woodford project with inspections on there as well. All right, so let's get started. Now, just as a quick refresh, so you want to navigate to settings. So you want to log into Dynamics 365 Field Service app and then change your area here to settings. And when you do that, you should see inspections right here under the work orders section over here. So what we can do, the first thing I want to show you is being able to copy an inspection, and that could be in a draft status or published. This one is actually published. So I'm just going to go ahead and check the one that I want to copy, and then I'm just going to hit that copy button. And you see how quick that was. It just copies obviously over the name as well, and then it just adds that one to it. So I can see that this is actually a copy, and then I can just start configuring that inspection. The next thing I wanted to show you, let me actually go ahead and open up one of my inspections, is two different question types that we now have in the toolbox. So you can see here the entity lookup, and there is also a number question in there as well. So the entity lookup is exactly that. We're tying that to a Dynamics 365 record. And then we have number, and the number question allows us to only enter numeric values in there, so you don't have to type in anything else. Now, let me just show you what that looks like. I have here, let me just go back. Where is it? Here is select asset. I just drag this entity here, the entity lookup, on my inspection, and then you can configure that. So when you click on that, again, you can just change the name, put a title or description in there, whether or not it's required. You can put a placeholder in there, but this is where you will select which entity this question will be tied to. And then obviously you need to pick an attribute as well that users will see to identify that record, in this particular case, the customer asset. Now let's take a look how that looks. So I'm just going to go to preview. As you can see here, select asset. Here I can just go ahead and click on that, and you can see here this just looks like an option set field. Now again, I only have the ability, unfortunately, to pick one field to show from that entity, which was a name field. But this is kind of hard, right? Because I might have several ones that are the same or similar, in regards to the name. So I gave Microsoft some feedback and I asked them if there might be a possibility to put like an additional field in there so it's easier to identify that record in Dynamics 365. Now, the other thing you want to keep in mind is that people that review this data, they will only see the relevant data that they have access to through their security role. So if they don't have access to certain records here and need certain assets, then again, if they are trying to fill this field with a particular record, they won't be able to see it, right? Because again, we're looking at these assets and that also goes through the security role that we have associated with that. All right, then we have the number field. Let me just go ahead and drag that on here as well. So I'm just gonna call this number. And you can, here you can make sure that it's going to be a whole number or not. You can set that, and then you can also actually choose values. It needs to be greater than, maybe it needs to be greater than 1, right? Let's make it required, and let's make it a whole number as well. And then again, I'm just going to save this, and let's take a look at the preview here. So here's my number. I put in 0. Oh, it doesn't like that. Let's just go ahead. Oops, let's go ahead and go back here, put a 2 in there. So that's kind of what that looks like when we put that number field in there. Now, the next thing I wanted to talk about was that branching and the conditional logic. So I'm going to go back here to inspections. Oh, no, actually, this one is fine. I'm going to just click on logic. And this is where we're going to be able to create those rules. So I'm going to click on create rule. And the first thing we need to set up is our conditions, right? So we can select a question that we already have, right? So we have all of these describe issues, inspection date. Let me actually go back to the designer. So you can see that here's my inspection date. Here's my model number. Here's where I select my customer asset. Here's my number field. Is on latest patch, yes or no. Installed latest patch, yes, no. Issues with install. And then describe issues, new appointment date. So let's go back to the logic. So I'm going to say installed latest patch. If that field equals no, then I want to show a question. Then I want to show the field that says I installed. Oh, wait. So this one needs to be is on latest patch. And I'm going to say it's not. And then I'm going to show the question installed latest patch. I'm going to show that. And then I can save the rule. All right, let's go to preview. I'm going to put in an inspection date. Oops. Let's just go ahead and say 23rd. Select the model number. See, and you can see here that after is on latest patch, that other field disappeared because I just put that logic in. So I'm going to say is on latest patch, no. And now we get that other question, installed latest patch. Yes, I did. Okay, perfect. Now let's go back to that logic because let's just say this is on latest patch, no. Then I want to do issues with install. If they check that, I want them to describe the issues. Let's go back to the logic. I'm going to save and close this rule. And here we can see the rule that we created. Again, if we need to edit it, we can just click this edit icon. I'm going to click and add a new one. And I want to say, let me just go back here so I know, installed latest patch. Okay. So again, these are all of our questions, installed latest patch. These are all of the options that we have. Is empty, is not empty, equal does not equal, contains does not contain, any of, all of, greater, less, greater or equals, less or equals. Now, since this is not a number field, you can see that I can't pick these greater, less, greater or equals, less or equals. So I'm going to say this equals issues with install. And if that is the case, then I want to show a question. Oops. And the question that I want to show is describe issues. Now, let me just click on this again so you can see what currently is available. We can show a question, we can change a question to required, and we can skip to a question. So I want to show this question, and I also want to make that required. There we go. And I'm gonna save and close the rule. And then lastly, I'm going to say if that describe issues contains data is not empty, then I want to skip it to the question new appointment date. And let me save that rule as well. Okay, so let's go back to that preview. Is on the latest patch. You can see here that the other questions are gone. So they're not on the latest patch. Now again, we have new appointment date underneath this guy. Installed latest patch. I had an issue with the install. Now we can see that describe issues just popped up and is now required. Issues. And that one now has data, and it just jumps to my new appointment date as soon as I put, as soon as I put data in there. So that's kind of how that branching and conditional logic works. Now, as I mentioned earlier, you can now also download a new mobile project that actually has inspections in there as well. So you can add it to Woodford. So you can just go ahead and download that and then upload that into Woodford. I actually have that link to that new mobile project on my website, on my webpage, and I'll drop the link below here as well to that related article. And then I also really quick wanted to talk a little bit about some of the updates that are on the roadmap. And one of them is the ability to edit a published inspection, and because this is, I think, very important because we can't do this today. Once you've published an inspection, then you can't make any changes to it, right? And that's a little annoying sometimes. But another thing that is also planned is the ability to add pages to inspections. And then obviously you can add the questions to the pages and then have the ability to skip the entire page instead of just skipping one question, right? So the next release of inspections will be the early access release, which will be in August, and that will then be followed by the general availability, which will be in October of this year. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit that like button and make sure to check back again next week for another video. All right, thanks again so much for watching, and stay safe, everybody. Bye-bye.